Hey all, my name is morgangodvin, still quite new to YouTube. So I was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for the overdose death of my best friend, Justin DeLong. We had been addicted to heroin together for about 5 years. He saved me from more overdoses than I can count. On the 7th anniversary of his death, March 28th of this year, I wrote him a letter, and it can be found on my Medium. If you go to my Linktree, it's up. 2 days later, I had an appearance on the Tamron Hall show. And for that show, his mother wrote me a letter and read it. And I'm gonna play that for you today. But first, I wanna tell you a little bit more about my relationship with Justin. Now, we both went to Centennial High School in Gresham, East Portland. But that's not where we met, because we were both high school dropouts. We partied hard and had a blast. He was one of the smartest people I ever knew. I knew his mom, and we bonded over this because we both had lesbian parents, which was not common at the time for our age group. It's much more common now. So we would commiserate over that. We both loved conscious rap, lyrical hip hop. He was such a good person, warm. His hugs were amazing. But we descended into the depths of despair and addiction together. He was the first person I know that went to jail. That was not a common occurrence in my middle-class life. I was horrified when it happened. What do we do? What do we do? And so I figured out how to write him a letter. I put a $20 bill in the envelope, and they actually put that on his books. That would never happen now. And when he got out, we were 18 years old? He never shut up about it. He was so thankful. Someone actually wrote him. Someone actually put money on his books. He told me he was hungry. I thought they fed you in jail. I would find all these things out later. I remember one of my first overdoses, Justin and his sister were at my apartment. And his sister was on the phone with his mom. I don't think I'd even met his mom yet. And they were panicking, saying that I was overdosing. And Justin threw me into the bathtub, turned on the cold water, and I woke up. So not only did I traumatize Justin and his sister, but also his mom. Hello, Ember, nice to meet you. But when I actually met his mom, she didn't hate me right off the bat just because I used drugs. She could see something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. It's true that I didn't turn to crime to support my habit. I kept a job, I delivered pizza. I would meet up with Justin after work and buy however much heroin my tips would allow on the days that he had enough to sell me. I wasn't stealing from anyone. I was still fairly trustworthy. And his mom somehow could see that and enjoyed the time that Justin spent around me, said he was his full self. And I never really got that. She even let me stay at her house one night with Justin wasn't even there. It was just Justin's sister and her when I had came to town for an Atmosphere concert. And I never forgot that. So it was these little things, right? Someone knows I'm addicted to heroin, but doesn't immediately think I'm a thief. Do you know how rare that is? And then March 28th, 2014, Justin, one of my best friends in the whole world, texted me for a gram of heroin. And I sold it to him. I invited him in to come do a shot in the house. He didn't want to. He drove home to his apartment. Would he have been pulled over along the way, he would have been arrested for drug possession and called a criminal, like he had been called so many times before. At this point, he'd only been out of prison about 9 months. But he wasn't. He wasn't pulled over. He made it home to his house, and he overdosed and died alone in his bedroom off of heroin that I sold him. I've replayed the events of that night a million times in my mind. The next night, SWAT raided my apartment. I was facing a 20-year mandatory minimum sentence for delivery resulting in death, but I got very lucky and was only sentenced to 5 years. Now, Justin's mom testified at my sentencing, wrote a letter on my behalf, and did not wish to see me incarcerated for her son's death. She forgave me when I was incapable of forgiving myself. And I think that is a large part of my recovery and how I've been able to progress so far and do the things that I do now, because that guilt was tearing me up. She loved me when I couldn't love myself. And I thank her so much for that. And now, with that said, I would like to play you the video. That is Ember, Justin's mom's, reading her letter to me.
Hi, Morgan. I was invited to share some thoughts with you today, and so far I haven't been able to wrangle my emotions and my thoughts at the same time, so I decided to write a letter and read it to you. I know that you know a part of Justin that I never will, and that he trusted a part of himself to you that he felt like he needed to hide and protect from me and from anyone who wasn't experiencing heroin addiction firsthand. He chose you to share his vulnerability and fears and hurts with. And 7 years ago today, Justin died trying to manage a broken heart with a misjudged dose of heroin. And 7 years ago today, you were arrested and held accountable for his tragic choice. What you're doing now humanizes drug addiction and addicts. You're fighting to change the policies and laws that govern the treatment of addiction and those suffering because of addiction. And that's what's going to prevent more deaths like Justin's. Justin, like most little boys, wanted to be a hero, either a sports hero or a superhero. And because of what you're doing with your shared experience, it's going to be the closest that he's ever going to get to doing that. His death, because of what you're choosing, will save lives. And because of your courage and your work, love and compassion will grow where mistrust and mistreatment were previously planted. And I thank and love you for that. Keep going, Morgan.
I wish this isn't how it went down. I wish circumstances could have been different and that Justin was here next to me fighting this fight for overdose prevention, for rational drug policy that saves lives. But it's not how it happened. He's gone and I'm here now. And I'm trying to make the best of a terrible tragedy. Everything I do for Justin. And I do for all the other friends that I have lost to opioid overdose, and there have been so many. Overdose death is a preventable death. It can be reversed with naloxone if someone is present and has naloxone. Fentanyl is in everything. Please check your drugs if you have the ability. Do not use alone. I just don't want the pattern to repeat for others like it did for us. And to Ember, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, this is what justice should look like in America.